They told you that awakening would set you free. But they didn't tell you that before freedom comes fire. They didn't tell you that before you rise, you will fall into yourself, into silence, into everything you've run from. They told you it would be light. They forgot to say light only comes after the rupture. This is what no one tells you. That spiritual awakening is not the beginning of peace. It is the beginning of reckoning. A reckoning with everything unhealed, everything unconscious, everything you've hidden in the attic of your soul and prayed never woke up. But it's waking now. Because awakening is not some glowing ascent into cosmic bliss. It is the death of illusion, the collapse of your false identity, the moment when everything you built to survive your masks, your roles, your perfection, your stories begin to fall apart. And underneath that collapse, something ancient is stirring, something holy, something wounded. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And here you are standing at the doorway of that darkness asking, why does it still hurt? Why am I still carrying this pain even after the awakening? The answer is this, because you haven't healed what was awakened. The light revealed it, but the light does not fix it. You saw the shadow. You felt the truth. You glimpsed the self behind the mask, but seeing is not the same as integrating. And if you don't heal what rose to the surface, it will haunt you louder than before. Because now you know. Now your soul knows. And what the soul knows, it cannot unknow. The pain becomes more personal now, more piercing, because it's no longer hidden beneath the noise of unconsciousness. It's present, it's sharp, it's speaking in symbols and dreams and gut feelings and emotional spirals that feel like they have no beginning or end. It whispers in your sleep. It aches in your body. It shows up in your relationships, in your silence, in your longing to escape. But escape no longer works. Numbing no longer soothes. The distractions that once silenced the ache now feel like poison. And so you're left with this raw truth. Awakening does not heal you. It exposes what needs to be healed. And if you don't turn inward, if you don't face the wound, you will suffer longer. Not because you're being punished, but because your pain is trying to become a teacher. This is the part that breaks most people. They feel the awakening, but they weren't prepared for the flood that follows. The rise of the inner child, screaming for love. The resurfacing of trauma long denied. The crushing realization that they've spent their whole life chasing wholeness in places that only made them more fragmented. And when the light fades and the high is gone and the spiritual honeymoon is over, they are left alone with the truth. Not the capital T truth of the cosmos, the truth of their own humanity, their grief, their unmet needs, their shadow. And here in this sacred devastation, they make a choice. Some turn back. Some rebrand the pain as progress and call themselves healed. Some bypass it all with love and light platitudes and spiritual performance. But those who stay, those who sit in the ache, those who dare to say, this still hurts, and I'm willing to feel all of it, those are the ones who heal for real. And healing, when it begins, does not feel like light. It feels like dying again, but this time consciously, this time with reverence. You grieve the self you had to become to survive. You rage for the boundaries you were never taught to hold. You collapse for the inner child who never got to cry. You finally admit that the pain didn't leave during your awakening. It was only given a voice, and that voice has been waiting your entire life to be heard. This is the voice you must learn to sit with. Not silence, not override, not explain away with psychology or spirituality. But to feel the rage of the rejected self, to feel the sorrow of the soul denied, to feel the deep bone-level ache of being unseen for so long that you almost disappeared into your own performance. This is not about wallowing. This is about witnessing, with presence, with truth, with compassion sharp enough to cut through every lie you are told about what it means to heal. Because healing is not a destination. It is not a fixed point where everything makes sense and nothing hurts anymore. Healing is a relationship with your darkness, a relationship with your vulnerability, a relationship with the sacred work of integration. And integration is not sexy. It's not always graceful. It often looks like breaking down again, saying no to what once felt safe, walking away from identities that no longer fit, holding space for fear, for confusion, for silence, allowing the unknown to live inside you without trying to name it too soon. You see, the moment you awakened, your psyche opened the door, but only you can walk through it, and you cannot carry everything with you. You must leave behind what is no longer true, even if it's familiar, even if it kept you safe, even if it feels like part of you. Because healing is not adding more light. It's making space for what was buried in the dark. And when you do, when you sit with the wound instead of fleeing it, you begin to understand something vital. The pain isn't here to destroy you. It's here to reveal you. The pain is not a curse. It is a compass. It points to the places within you still crying for wholeness, still aching to be felt not fixed, still longing to be loved in their rawest, most human form. But we were not taught to follow pain. We were taught to escape it. We were taught to cover it with performance, with silence, with spiritual superiority, to suppress it in the name of strength, to bypass it in the name of peace. But peace that avoids pain is not peace. It's paralysis. And paralysis is not healing, it is abandonment wearing a holy mask. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is what unhealed spiritual awakening becomes a fate. You cannot escape replaying itself through every relationship, every dream deferred, every emotional spiral that pulls you back into the wound you refuse to face. Because awakening does not save you from your shadow. It introduces you to it. And your shadow, that neglected vault of your psyche, does not respond to more light. It responds to integration. It doesn't want to be erased. It wants to be seen. It wants to be included. It wants to be brought back into the circle of your being and told you belong to. But this takes courage. Not the kind of courage that charges forward. The kind that sits still. The kind that listens. The kind that allows truth to rise even when it shatters the identity you've built. Because the truth will shatter you, not to break you, but to free you. And what is the truth? The truth is, you cannot spiritually awaken without emotionally awakening. You cannot ascend without descending. You cannot reclaim the self without first mourning every false version of you that you had to become to survive. And that mourning is brutal, because it requires you to stop pretending, to stop performing healing and start practicing honesty. And honesty means this: you are still hurting. And that is okay. You are still grieving, and that is holy. You are still afraid, and that is human. The spiritual path was never meant to make you untouchable. It was meant to make you whole. But wholeness does not mean you're always calm, always wise, always elevated above your humanity. Wholeness means you can hold your mess without shame. You can sit with your rage without harming. You can feel your loneliness without collapsing into despair. You can make room for everything that is real, not just what is comfortable. Because real healing isn't about transcending pain. It's about descending into the body, into the memory, into the breath you held during every moment you were told, "Don't feel that." But now you're allowed to feel. You're allowed to scream for the inner child who never got to be loud. You're allowed to cry for the version of you who carried the weight of everyone else's expectations. You're allowed to mourn the years you spent chasing a spiritual identity while ignoring your emotional truth. Because all of it belongs here. All of it is sacred. Even your anger, even your numbness, even your confusion. They are not flaws. They are signals. Signals that something within you is still waiting to be healed, not judged, not exiled, not spiritualized, but met. And when you meet it, something changes. You stop looking for salvation in the sky. You start looking for presence in your own breath. You stop trying to escape the wound. You start learning its language. You stop shaming the fear. You begin asking it what it needs. And for the first time you realize the pain is not here to be conquered. It is here to be cared for. You don't need more techniques. You need more tenderness. You don't need more rituals. You need more realness. You don't need more words. You need more willingness to feel what those words could never reach. Because the wound behind your awakening isn't asking for theories. It's asking for presence. The presence that says, I see you. I'm here. I'm not leaving. Even now. Especially now. And maybe for the first time in your life, the parts of you that were exiled begin to believe it. They begin to soften, to emerge, to tremble in the light, unsure if it's safe to be held. And you, the awakened one, become the space that says, you are safe now. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to heal fast. You don't have to prove anything to be loved. That is when the real healing begins. When you stop trying to fix the wound and start loving the one who carries it. That is when the pain begins to shift. Not disappear, not vanish into some perfect version of you, but soften, like winter giving way to spring, like a storm finally learning to rest in the arms of the ocean. Because pain is not asking to be exiled, it is asking to be integrated, and integration does not happen through understanding. Alone it happens through embodiment. You don't heal by thinking your way through it. You heal by feeling your way home, to the places you once abandoned, to the truths you once silenced, to the softness you once believed was too much for this world. And maybe it was, but not anymore, because you have changed. Because now you are strong enough to be soft. Now you are conscious enough to be kind. Now you are awake enough to face the very pain you once thought would destroy you. And that is everything, because now the pain becomes sacred. Now the ache becomes intelligence. Now the emptiness becomes a doorway, not a void. And you walk through it not to find a new version of yourself, but to reclaim the parts of you that never stopped waiting for you to stop reaching outside, waiting for you to come back to the body, waiting for you to say, yes, I will sit with you. Yes, I will hear your cry. Yes, I will hold what others told me to hide. Carl Jung understood this. He knew that transformation wasn't about rising above the pain, but descending into it. He knew that the self, the deep center of the psyche, does not awaken in the light alone. It awakens in the tension between opposites, between knowing and not knowing, between clarity and confusion, between collapse and courage. And you are living that tension now. You are not just waking up, you are becoming real. And realness hurts at first. It strips away what is false. It removes the performances. It tears the veil off your spiritual ego and reveals something terrifying, your humanity. And suddenly, that's not something to escape. It's something to honor. You no longer seek to be beyond this world. You seek to be fully here, in your body, in your breath, in your heartbreak, in your joy, not perfectly, but truthfully. You stop striving for some untouchable peace. You begin making peace with the untouchable parts of yourself. The part that still cries in the dark. The part that still longs for connection. The part that still fears being seen even as it aches to be witnessed. And in witnessing it, you begin to understand the pain you thought was the problem was always the portal. The trigger was the teacher. The wound was the wisdom. The breakdown was the breakthrough, but only if you stayed long enough to listen. Most people don't. Most people try to bypass it. They wrap it in light. They bury it in mantras. They run back to the illusion of being above it all. But you stayed. You remained. You burned in the fire until it no longer consumed you. It changed you. And now, you are no longer afraid of your darkness. You are no longer afraid of your softness. You are no longer afraid of your story because you've stopped trying to rewrite it. You are learning to live it, to hold it, to speak from it, to walk forward not as someone who is healed, but as someone who is whole. And wholeness is the real awakening, not a state of perfection, a state of permission, to be fully human, to be divinely flawed, to be completely here in all your tenderness, your silence, your sorrow, your strength. And this is how you know the healing is working. You no longer fear falling apart. You trust that whatever breaks will not be the end, it will be the next beginning. You trust the spiral. You trust the silence. You trust that the wound no longer owns you because you have chosen to love what it tried to hide. And love, real love, is the only medicine deep enough for this kind of pain. Not romantic love, not rescue, not fantasy, but the fierce, unconditional, unwavering love that rises from within you when you stop abandoning yourself. The love that says, I will not leave. Not when it hurts. Not when I'm afraid. Not even when I feel like I'm breaking again. Because I know now that this pain has a purpose. And that purpose is me. You are the purpose. Not your titles. Not your image. Not your performance of peace. You. In your quiet, in your chaos, in the raw, unfiltered truth of being alive and awake and unfinished. You are not here to become someone better. You are here to become someone truer. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be whole. And wholeness is messy. It is non-linear. It is 1,000 tiny deaths and even more rebirths. And yes, it hurts. But now you know what to do with that pain. You hold it. You listen to it. You stop fearing it like a predator. You start meeting it like an old companion who came bearing messages your mind never dared speak aloud. You stop making the pain wrong. You stop needing to fix it. You begin to walk with it. You begin to honor it. And slowly, it changes. It becomes a guide, a compass, a sacred whisper in the bones. This is the way. The way forward is not away from the pain. It's through it. It's beneath it. It's in the heart of it. Because spiritual awakening is not a finish line, it is a doorway. And healing is what walks you through. But you don't walk as the person you once were. You walk as the one who has faced their own shadow and stayed. You walk as the one who has touched their own brokenness and not turned away. You walk as the one who has looked into the mirror of their suffering and whispered, I love you anyway. That is power, not dominance, not certainty, not control. Power as presence. Power as softness that does not break. Power as rootedness in your body, your truth, your knowing. And the world will feel it. Not because you speak louder, but because you carry something different now. A calm that doesn't need explanation. A silence that doesn't beg to be filled. A depth that makes people pause, not because they understand it, but because it reminds them of something they lost. You become that reminder, not through perfection, but through embodiment, through your willingness to feel what others run from, to name what others deny, to soften where others harden, to remain where others disappear. You are the return, the homecoming, the healing made flesh. And even when it hurts again, because it will, you no longer panic. You no longer retreat. You know the way now. You've walked through fire. You've listened to your ache. You've made peace with not knowing. And in that not knowing, you've found something solid. You, not the version of you you tried to build. The version of you that was always there beneath the noise. The one you buried to be loved. The one you silenced to stay safe. The one you lost trying to be light all the time. You found them, and now you stay with them. That is healing. Not a moment, not a milestone, a commitment to stay, to listen, to love, to feel, to keep becoming without rushing the process or escaping the pain. And in that commitment, the pain no longer owns you. The awakening no longer overwhelms you. The past no longer defines you. You are here, awake, whole, becoming. And that is enough. It always was.